Gaming Bolt presents 15 things Fallout 3 did better than Fallout 4. For a long time after its release, Fallout 3 was considered the inferior Fallout product. Keep in mind that more people simply disliked it rather than hating it. Even with Fallout New Vegas garnering so much love, Fallout 3 had a pretty good reputation thanks to what it ultimately achieved for the franchise. However, Fallout 4 released, and you've never seen so many loyal fans turn on a game so quickly. While Fallout 4 was still a good game at the end of the day, there were some things that Fallout 3 seemingly did better. Some of those things are subjective, and well, some of them may not be. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at 15 of those things here. Speech checks. You've probably heard this term a fair number of times. A speech check essentially relies on your charisma stat and speech skill in Fallout 3. They let you manipulate NPCs to do things they wouldn't ordinarily do, with the accompanying speech challenge indicating your percentage of success. Not only does Fallout 4 do away with the speech skill, leaving everything up to charisma, but its speech checks never felt particularly interesting or impactful. Most times it felt too easy to completely flip someone's point of view or increase your reward. Far Harbor did make speech checks better and introduced cooler decisions, but that doesn't excuse the base game for not even including percentage of success for different choices based on your charisma. Dialogue trees. Dialogue trees, huh? Who could have known they'd be so difficult to pull off? Forget the impact of choices, speech checks, and what have you. Fallout 3 scores over Fallout 4 with its dialogue simply because you can see the entire line being spoken. In Fallout 4, the choices in a dialogue tree are more like topics. It may seem like a nitpick, but knowing exactly what you're going to say at all times in a role-playing game, especially one that's trying to provide the illusion of choice, is absolutely paramount. Karma. Fallout 3's karma system was pretty straightforward. Do good things, get positive karma. Do bad things, get negative karma. Various companions will follow you based on your karma rating. High karma characters will even leave you if you start making bad decisions. Some towns even offer benefits based on karma, while different factions may pursue you based on the same. Fallout 4 kind of does this, though it's more tied to a companion's approval rating than anything else, which can open up their respective side quests. Your choice of faction is more straightforward as well. Pick one that's opposed to the others, and usually the others will be opposed to you sooner or later. Are the two systems really all that different? Probably not, but the karma system in Fallout 3 did at least give some allusion to the impact of your actions. Plus, it netted you a nice little title or two. Skills. Fallout 3 has skills and perks, while Fallout 4 has perks. Well, what's the difference? Well, in Fallout 3, skills were more general, determining your effectiveness in different things. If you wanted to be good in trading, then the barter skill was the way to go, for example. 3 skills could be tagged, giving a 15-point bonus in that skill, and special points could be used to boost them once by an additional 2 points. Perks, on the other hand, are more like general boosts and abilities that depend on your special stats. Things like Life Giver, providing 30 more HP, required 5 points in endurance, while Master Trader, cause all items to cost 25% less, needed 6 points in charisma and 60 points in the barter skill. As a result, depending on your special stat allotments, skills, tagged skills and perks, you could have a drastically different experience with each character. However, in Fallout 4, everything is rolled into perks. While armor and gear can help further define a build with different affixes and modifiers, characters can still end up feeling uniform in the long run because, by default, there's very little restriction on what perks you can have, which brings us to our next point. Perks. As noted, perks are very easy to get in Fallout 4. Level up to gain an ability point and spend it to increase special stats, unlock a perk, or rank up perk. That's pretty much it, and as long as you keep leveling, it wasn't too difficult to get a wide range of perks. While perks and higher ranks are locked off depending on the player's level, it was easy to just take a bit of everything. It's still possible to focus on a very specific build and play Fallout 4 as a sneaky assassin or a powerhouse. However, that's more out of fun rather than as a consequence of your build choices. You can still go guns blazing through the game even if your build is made for stealth. Perks are definitely more streamlined, and gear does add some interesting modifiers, but the complexity felt reduced as a whole in Fallout 4. Overall progression. Fallout 4's leveling system accomplishes a different goal though. It's meant to have a more open-world style of RPG progression, ensuring a steady loop of exploring, shooting, and looting. Fallout 3's leveling may have felt more important, but that's because it had a level cap of 20. Leveling as a whole was more spread out throughout the game's duration, and considering how your special stats could affect what perks you unlocked, the effectiveness of certain skills, and so on, knowing what to specialize in was very important. Again, Fallout 4 accomplishes a certain style of progression, and Fallout 3 goes with a more heavy-handed style instead. Meaningful consequences. Not including the DLC, Fallout 4's meaningful choices basically boil down to which faction you aligned with and whether you take out their enemies. Beyond this, there didn't seem to be much meaningful choice as a whole. You didn't really have to worry about adapting to different circumstances if a gun broke or bullets were scarce. Whether it's the character building or overall story, the lack of consequences became more obvious. In Fallout 3, your choice of character could have big consequences on how the game was played. One of the biggest initial decisions, to nuke Megaton or not, had huge consequences. As a result, decisions felt meaningful and less arbitrary. More traditional RPG elements. While Fallout 4 received significant praise for its shooting elements, some felt this contributed to the dulling of the RPG mechanics. Fallout 3, in contrast, made VATS almost mandatory for many tough fights. It was needed for properly planning and thinking through encounters. Once again, Fallout 4 follows a more loot-grinding formula for its shooting, and if you're into that, it's perfectly serviceable. But if you want a bit more tactics at the cost of smoother shooting, Fallout 3 is probably the way to go. Better opening. In Fallout 4, we got a glimpse of the pre-nuclear apocalypse, escaping to a vault to avoid the incoming fallout. This would lead to the player and their spouse, along with Sean, being cryogenically frozen. And the rest is history. And we're sorry, but Fallout 3's beginning was just plain better. You started out as a baby with Liam Neeson as your father, James, and grew up in Vault 101, from an infant to a child and eventually an adult. Even the overall escape process felt more memorable thanks to the strong connection made with James and other Vault dwellers. Sidequest design. Though Fallout 3 has a decent story overall, forgetting the horrible ending that came at launch, its sidequest design was ultimately better. There weren't tons of sidequests, but those that were there, like Oasis, Vault 106, The Replicated Man, they were incredibly well designed. They felt longer and presented more memorable conclusions. While Fallout 4 had some decent quests like Dunwich Borers and The Devil's Due, the majority of side quests didn't really push the envelope that much further than Fallout 3. Now, granted, Fallout New Vegas probably trumps both games in terms of player choice and agency in side quests, but that's a different topic altogether. Repeatable quests. Further to that point, repeatable quests in Fallout 3 are better than Radiant quests in Fallout 4. It's purely personal preference, but the repeatable quests offered a sort of activity that constantly rewarded you while you did your own thing. By comparison, Radiant quests just had you dropping everything else, going to the same recycled areas with similar enemies and no real interesting mechanics to retrieve the same items. Furthermore, the rewards in Fallout 3 felt slightly more substantial, from karma and caps to Ultrajet ammo and XP. Your mileage may vary though. Story-based DLC. Fallout 4's Far Harbor DLC was admittedly great and helped realize a number of things that were missing from the base experience. However, Point Lookout for Fallout 3 is better. In a way, both DLCs are incredibly similar. They both involve finding a missing girl, venturing out to a fog-ridden locale, and encountering all manner of creepiness. However, for $10, Point Lookout offered even better environmental storytelling, excellent quests and mysteries, and a central story that was tough to resist. From mass Civil War graves and Chinese spy rings to slightly Lovecraftian horrors. It's pretty crazy how great Point Lookout was for being a good 7 years before Far Harbor even released. 3 Dog. Have you done something wrong in Fallout 3? You can bet that 3 Dog, voiced by Eric Dellums, will talk about it among other things. Howls, awesome one-liners, everything about 3 Dog was great. Where was 3 Dog in Fallout 4? It doesn't matter because he just wasn't there. Though Fallout 4 may have had a better soundtrack overall, Fallout 3 had 3 Dog, and it was good. Better writing. The quality of writing may ultimately be subjective when you get down to it. Some people will simply prefer one story over the other, regardless of how well the latter is written. That being said, everything in Fallout 4, from the opening to the core quest and interactions with characters, aside from Nick Valentine, just felt a notch below Fallout 3. Perhaps it could have been better with more substantial choices and side quest design, but make no mistake, Fallout 3 isn't that great either. It has its share of flaws, like that ridiculous ending that existed pre-Broken Steel, but still comes out on top compared to Fallout 4 in terms of overall quality. First of its kind. Finally, perhaps the biggest reason why Fallout 3 is better than Fallout 4 is because it was the first of its kind. Before launch, Fallout 3 had the unenviable goal of translating an isometric, post-apocalyptic wasteland into a first-person shooter/RPG genre, roping in old-school fans while also catering to newcomers. It had to capture that look, that feel, that atmosphere in order to truly succeed. Despite numerous bugs and other issues, it succeeded in spades and felt like a significant step forward for the genre as a whole. Fallout 4 may feel mechanically better and have superior production values, but for its time, it didn't feel nearly as groundbreaking. In terms of advancing the formula, much less revolutionizing the genre like Fallout 3 did, Fallout 4 just couldn't come close. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from Gaming Bolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.